Okay, alright, so today I did 220 grit on both sides of the blade. I worked both the Shinogi and the Shinogi G. I've worked the Kisaki. I have not worked the Munye yet because I usually like to do that purely by hand with paper. I feel like I got a little bit more control than I do if I was using the stones. Tomorrow I'm going to work on 700 grit. I did start one side with 700 grit just to see if the stone was going to be consistent. I know that's a big jump in grits, but the 220 grit and the 700 grit, they're both so fine looking that when you use a 220 grit compared to 220 grit on paper, there's a huge difference. The lines for the 220 grit with the Waterstone are much more finer. It's hard to explain, but it's more of a consistent pattern. So when I go to 700, it really just looks like I've gone up just one or two grits. Unlike with the 220 grit going to 320, then 400, then 600, and 800, there's usually some pretty big differences in the pattern of the grit. So I'm going to do 700 tomorrow. I'm going to try to get into the 800. The 800 is actually a whole lot more finer than the 700 grit. I know it seems like a contradiction, but it is not. It actually works out to the best. Because I'll go to 800, then I'll go to 1200, and then after 1200 I'll start using paper on the blade, because by that time I will already have the Shinogi and Shinogi G geometry of the blade already set. So any kind of paper that I use, it's going to be such a fine grit that it's really not going to damage the Shinogi G if I were to do that. It would be easily fixable than it would be if I was using a much coarser grit of paper. So after tomorrow I should already be at 1200, well at the end of 800, maybe the next day I'll be at 1200, but for the most part I'll keep track of everything that I'm doing here so that everybody understands and can see that what I'm doing.